Welcome back to the Lift Free and Diet Hard podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Coates. Join me along with industry leaders and friends on a quest to get more people through the gym door and eating and living healthier. Join me where evidence meets empathy while rejecting fitness industry fads and extremism. Let's begin. Susan Niebergall, it's great to have you back. You are the author of Fit at Any Age. You are the co-coach of the Inner Circle with the legend Jordan Syed, your longtime mentor. I think he even started, he was your original coach, was he not?
Yeah,
Yes.
he was my original online coach.
You are a crazy success story in that context of what people can, where you can start to where you are right now. You have a huge engaged social media following, and you are, as I said this when I introduced you for the last episode, one of the few prominent female fitness authorities over the age of 60. It's great to have you back.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Great to see you.
All right. So last time we talked, you had recently had a hip replacement surgery.
Yeah.
So how is that feeling now? How is the recovery?
I'll tell you, I am actually right up on my 2-year anniversary of that. Coming up like in a few weeks. And I was thinking about this the other day. It's great. I mean, I don't even think about it anymore. The strength is back. I feel like it's back to my dominant hip again, and it wasn't for so long. I feel like it's dominant. The one area which is probably still lagging a little bit is stability. It's not quite the same, which I understand. But for the most part, I don't even think about my hip as a thing anymore, which is pretty incredible. It was just, and I have to say, that was one of the best experiences I ever went through. Just having this done. And after having the flu and norovirus this year, I told my husband I would rather have my other hip done than do this again.
Wow. And
The flu was bad this year, you guys. If you didn't have it, you feel blessed. But actually, you go into a surgery like a hip, and if you're prepared, and you work, like I worked for the better part of a year going into that, to get it ready, prehabbing or whatever, if you want to call it, building strength and stability and pushing through pain to do that, which I would never recommend. But in this case, it was advised actually, and it paid off because my rehab was easy. It was fun. I don't think I've had as much fun training as I had building my hip back. That was just like the best.
okay. And we talked about this last time you were on, that you felt confident that all of that strength training helped you come out and recover faster. Is there any indication, based on like doctors will tell you what the average person's recovery time and milestones are for this? Is there any indication of just how much better, faster this went for you than the average person? And considering with the average person, especially someone in their 60s, I mean, where is their strength? Where is their muscle mass? Where is their lifestyle behavior? It's going to be very different from you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and my surgeon said I'm definitely not the average 60. I was 64 at the time, I guess, or 63 at the time, in between, whatever. I was not the average 60-ish year old, coming in there for a hip replacement. I hit milestones very quickly, and I don't have any comparison, but I was doing squats on day 3. And by squats, I'm meaning, and I was given permission. This was part of what I was given to do, and I just could accomplish it. So we increased what I was doing and everything, but literally holding onto my kitchen counter at the sink and doing a partial squat. I started that on day 3 and just went from there. And then I started, and I'll be honest, my range of motion, it was very short. It felt really good. And so I started pushing the envelope, and they have this guy that comes to your house for the first like 2 weeks. And he was like, stop, don't do that. I'm like, but this feels great. So I was ahead of the game. They had to kind of pull me back a little bit because I was feeling too good. But it's all about what you do beforehand. My hip was as stable as it could be. It was as strong as I could get it, and so I come out the other side, had a great surgeon. Obviously, he did a great job. And they do the little rehab in your house, where a lot of it for hip people, I don't know if people know this, a lot of the beginning rehab is in your bed. They have you laying down, and they're having you glide your heels up and down, kind of do a bridge from laying on the bed and at first I'm like, well, that's really unstable. I wonder what that's about, you know? I mean, if
Mhm.
you think about it, um, did things from the bed, had to hold on to the edge of the bed and kick my heels back and, just little things like that. That's how it all started. And then we added the squats. And then at some point, I told the guy, I don't need you to come back. You don't need to sit here and watch me in my bed, pull my heels up. I'll do this 5 times a day. If you tell me to, I'll do it. And he's like, yeah, no, I don't, they just gave me what they watched me for a week and then said, here's what you need to do. And then I started going to the regular rehab after that.
You were probably off the charts compared to anything they'd seen. I mean, there's in the history of people getting hip replacements, there's probably people who are comparable, but I mean,
Oh,
this
yeah.
particular individual probably had not seen anybody even close. And I guess I think the underlying thing is just the physical strength, the metabolic health, the circulatory health, all of the things that, strong nervous system had to be night and day compared to what someone ends
Yeah.
up at historically in their mid 60s on average.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I'm ahead of the game in that way. And what's been interesting is, so that's been 2 years ago, and I feel like my health has shifted in the last 2 years, and not for the better. I've
Mm.
had some things pop up, and I've been dealing with HRT now, and all the rest. And yeah, so I'm kind of a different person now than I was then, physiologically, and it would be
Mm.
interesting. I mean, and I'm just saying this, not that it would happen if I had to have a hip replacement now.
Mm.
How would this differ with everything that's going on with me now? It would be an interesting comparison. Not that I want to make that comparison for real, but just yeah, it's interesting because a lot's changed in the 2 years for sure.
Mm.
But yeah, it was all about work, and I remember, and I think I probably told you this too before, that had a chat or two with Robert Linkle about this because
Mm.
he's been through hip replacements multiple, and he trains people with hip replacements all the time. That's kind of his jam, and he was the one that encouraged me. He said, "Look, you're going to have to push through some pain and do it." Because I mean, you're not going to make anything worse. You're just going to take it out, whatever. If you can handle that, you will be really grateful on the other side. And he was 100% right.
I was just talking to him. I have him booked. He'll be on a future episode in the coming weeks.
He's the
All right.
best.
He is. Okay, so pulled a quote from your media, and obviously I know this is one of those things to grab attention, but there's an underlying truth to it. Quote, you don't lose strength because you get older because you stop losing strength. Now, I'll preface this by saying, yes, there are, we do trend to lose strength as we get older. We know that it is actually a physiological thing. However, philosophically, what's true about what you just said?
I think it is true because I feel like the older you get, and this is what I see with typical people even around my neighborhood who are my age, they're putting on the brakes. They're slowing down
Mm.
as they get older. They're not moving as much. Maybe they're retreating more into their house more. They're not out there doing things and living life. And it's like retirement. I used to think of retirement that way. I'll be honest. When I was younger and teaching in the school and dreaming about my retirement 20 years down the road or however long, that I would just be sitting back watching the Today Show every morning, drinking coffee, and that, slow
Mm.
life down, blah, 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 blah. When really, that's where the problems come when you start allowing everything just to stop or to slow down, as opposed to using the time that you have if you're retired or whatever, get out there, do things, be active, try something new, learn a new skill. I started jujitsu at age 62. Try different things, get out there, live your life. And I think that's the idea here with that.
Um, I've recorded, but I haven't aired it yet. There's an episode with Dr. Tommy Wood, and he's got a book coming out soon called The Stimulated Mind. And one of the questions in there, and he goes into this in the book, is he thinks that retirement is the worst idea possible. So I won't spoil the interview, but in a lot of cases, when people retire from work that is their identity is fulfilling, has a big social component, then you lose a lot of important cognitive stimulus. And you directly alluded to that. You have to go and do all these other things. But it's actually, you tend to see people, some people fall off a cliff in terms of their cognitive well-being, their metabolic health.
Yep.
And I mean, we've all heard the stories about the person who retired and then, well, died shortly after. And yes, some of those statistics it's someone's health is otherwise in decline, which actually forced them to retire. So there's a where's the cause, where's the effect? But retirement, as Tommy was saying it, is sort of a more recent convention in our world as opposed to the way that like past societies really lived.
Yeah, I was an educator for 33 years. Um, and I got certified as a personal trainer towards the end of my 33 years, but I was doing both at the same time for like the last, I don't know, 6 years of it or something like that, where I went to the school, did my day job. What I felt like I was known for, my identity was an educator and a school counselor. So I feel that. I understand that. That was my identity. And then I would go to the gym two nights a week and start training people hands on for 30-minute sessions at this local gym. That's how I started. And I remember when I retired that I didn't have a problem. I should say I was worried about losing my identity because I was an educator. That's all I ever did. That's all I was known for, all that. But I was lucky because I had started this other project, this other part-time gig where I had a passion for working out and I did helped people for a living. And so now I'm marrying the two. And I had something to go to. In other words, I had started the start of my business and working in gyms and things. I had something to retire to. So I wasn't just sitting around. And I think that was super important for me because I think my life would be very different. Obviously, it'd be very different if I didn't have that. But even from a health perspective, I don't think I would be where I'm at if I just retired and retreated.
I'll interrupt this episode for a quick but important side quest. While I don't think everybody needs to track nutrition all the time, tracking is one of the most powerful tools to make sure you're not eating too much or too little. And MacrosFirst is my go-to app for me and my clients. MacrosFirst has a free barcode scanner, and a premium version comes with a bunch of cool stuff to make managing your nutrition easier. Like, one, AI search. AI is everywhere now, where you can speak or type the foods you wish to save and log everything without having to search for each individual ingredient. Two, import recipes from a website. Save time creating recipes manually by importing all ingredients and instructions from your favorite recipe websites. No more searching for each ingredient one by one, just paste in the website. And three, and this one's a big one for nutrition coaches, follow unlimited friends so you can follow all your clients. And there's a lot more cool features. You can try the premium version of MacrosFirst free for 14 days. Just download MacrosFirst from the App Store. And during setup, you'll be asked, how did you hear about us? Type in the code Andrew.
So let's talk your practice. So lifting heavy as an older adult, right? And there's a post about this. I'd be happy to hear what you'd say. How do you know if you're lifting heavy enough? And you can define heavy the way you want to. But then I would love to hear how you do approach your intensity with your training. And we can also talk about, the rep ranges that you often work in with different exercises. So take that where
Yeah.
you want.
Boy, things have changed for me with this. You asked me this 10 years ago and it would be completely different. Completely different. And 10 years ago for me, if you think about it, my mid 50s. To me, I'm a youngster in my 50s. I look back on that and think, wow, look what I used to do. Like I can't do that stuff anymore and I don't want to. The word heavy is taken a new meaning for me. I don't even like to use it that much anymore. I would rather use the word challenging instead because I think it's a little bit more accurate and a little, honestly, less intimidating for people in my age bracket. Heavy, it kind of gives them this picture of something that may or may not be accurate, but it's intimidating. So if you say a weight that's challenging for you, that now it kind of brings it, oh, okay, because everybody will have a different weight. And so that's how I approach it now. Jordan still writes all my programming, and we've changed a lot on how we approach things. He got me through pre and post rehab. And so now, I have little injuries that pop up still here and there. I'm nursing a bicep tendon a little bit here and there. And I got diagnosed with osteoporosis. So I'm really working on more impact into my life than I had been before. And for me personally, I still like to push the envelope a little bit. I always was a little bit reckless, maybe 10 years ago. I always push the envelope and I still like to do that. Meaning if I have I have 3 sets of something, let's say 6 reps or something, and I dumbbell bench press. I'm using set of dumbbells, 6 reps, pop out. I'm going up the next. I'm moving up the weight up the next set. No
Mm.
question. And then you know what? If I struggle on those 6, okay, I'll get whatever I can. Put those heavy guys down. Go get the lighter ones. Finish out my 6, whatever I have. I want to finish with 6, and then the next set I'm trying that again. I
Mm.
push. I want to see where I stand, but I do it at a weight now that I probably I would have. I don't even know how to say this. I'm not pushing the envelope as much. I'm not trying to go to failure all the time. I can't.
Mm.
Um, I want to leave feeling energized, not gassed. And I get these, I think we get these injuries popping up here and there, and there's a lot tied into that for me physically as well. And so I just want to keep doing this. So I've kind of reshaped in my head what heavy or challenging is.
Mm.
Um, and it's more, yeah, I would love to continue to build muscle and all that, but it's more about maintaining now, not losing anymore. My mindset has shifted. Instead of build, 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 there's some of that. It's more of let's maintain this because I'm at a good place, right? Let's not let Mother Nature eat away. And I mean, Mother Nature is eating away at some of the muscle I have built. I know
Mm.
that. But I want to stop it, as much as I can. So it's a different framework, I guess. I'm still pushing the envelope. I'm not maybe as reckless as I might have been before. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean maybe more daring. I'm not looking to go to failure. I'm not looking to set any PRs.
Mm.
If I can't do it, I can't do it. It's I don't lose sleep over it anymore. I think it's a meeting of the mind and where I am
Mm.
physically. And that's been a tough one. That's been years in the making. And I still fight myself a little bit. And that's probably the toughest part. My mind is like, wow, look what I did when I was in my 50s. Gosh, I'd love to do that again. Yeah, well, I don't know.
Mm. So
My
you
body can't
mentioned,
take it.
yeah, you mentioned the 6 reps. So I'll unpack this a bit. Uh, I'm sort of fascinated with some of the rhetoric on the internet about, rep ranges and hypertrophy.
Ugh,
And I think a lot of these arguments tend to come down to like idealistic interpretations of research, probably for, you know, maybe like younger guy populations. I mean, I've coached in person for a long time, and I have my client Larry, who he's built to handle a trap bar deadlift. He doesn't have long limb segments, and he's got a short torso. He's powerfully built, so he likes 1 rep max attempts on a trap bar
yeah,
deadlift, and we built up to it over time. But he tolerates it quite well.
yeah.
Now, I guess some of these strength compounds with someone who's experienced and can manage form can work pretty well in lower rep ranges. Now, but as far as like a lot of the accessory work and especially isolations, I struggle with this narrative that, it's optimal and uh, I might even dare say safe for everybody to train, this 4 to 6 rep range for everything
Yeah.
to near failure, right? And you just mentioned how you're doing dumbbell bench press for 6 reps, to effectively failure and beyond. So has your accessory work and especially any isolation stuff, have you biased to a higher rep range now?
So it's interesting. My workouts have all rep ranges included in a workout.
Mm. Mm.
So my first move of the day might be a lower rep range, and by the time I get to the end of the workout, I'm at 15 or 20 reps. It just
Okay.
depends on what it is. And I like to look at it this way: whether I'm doing 6, 8 reps or 15 or 20 reps, I'm picking a weight that's going to be challenging for me in that rep range, right? So
Mm.
if I'm doing 15 or 20, I'm not going to be able to use the same weight that I could use if I only had to do 6 or 8 of them, right?
Mm.
So I'm going to have to go down in weight. And the biggest mistake I think people make with this is that they equate that to it should be easy, right? It's not, it shouldn't be easy. 15 reps, you're using a lighter weight, but that doesn't mean it's going to be easy. You have to find a weight that's still going to challenge you for the 15 reps, right? And the first couple will move probably really fast and should get harder as you get through your 15 or your 20 or whatever it is, and kind of look at it that way. I agree with you. I think there's so much out there on the optimal this and the optimal that, and I think for someone like me, my age, I I have all rep ranges. I'm not doing anything for 3 or 4 reps anymore. I can't remember the last time I've had anything for that. So for instance, you were talking about Larry and the trap bar. I use trap bar as well. Whenever I deadlift, I use trap bar, and I have backed down my weight. I remember the days where I was picking up 225 and going 5, 6 reps with 225. Well, those days are gone. I'm not gonna. I don't even care to do that anymore on that exercise. I'm at a nice meet. I'm at a nice challenging weight where if I'm doing 6 or 8 reps there, yeah,
Mm.
I feel it. I feel powerful. My lats a lot of times will feel it the next day, invariably with a good session on a trap bar. But yeah, I'm not trying to set the world on fire. Way back in the head, there's like, yeah, that'd be kind of cool. But then it's like, no, it's not that cool. It was cool
Okay.
back in the day. It's not so cool anymore.
I mean, I've always thought that rep ranges, well, load will influence rep range. And
Yeah.
then, but you also have to take it in consideration who's the population you're training, what's their
Yeah.
experience level, what's their injury history, and specific joints to specific movements. Are we dealing with what is the physics and the uh, anthropometry, like the limb lengths, the physics of how each individual person moves for a specific exercise. And I think some things are actually well suited to fairly low rep ranges to near failure, and I think some things are not. And that's just me. And I just don't. I find this like absolutist language,
Hmm.
especially around. Well, it's really about anything, whether it's nutrition, hypertrophy, you name it. I find it's like, and I'll die on this hill. Tell me that you don't actually coach real human beings in person when I hear this sort of rhetoric on social media, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's out there. It's out there all the time. And I'm thinking, someone at my age going in there doesn't need to be doing a sumo deadlift with a barbell for 3 reps, see how much you can do for 3 or 4 reps. I mean, the average person walking in that wants to get stronger, try to build some muscle, stay healthy.
Mm.
It's not a practical movement for them. Now, a deadlift's a great movement, but now we can look at maybe other ways to achieve that same goal without having to lift super heavy. And this whole thing is what scares people my age out of the gym.
And it's tricky because I can't remember whose feed it was on, but I saw somebody share. I think it was it was definitely a Girls Gone Strong thing,
Mhm.
and it was a woman who would have been 90 doing a like difficult 1 rep max, and like clearly she had built a lot of experience. It was something within her capability. I know my friend Dean Somerset has had over the years an older gentleman client who I think on his birthday would always try a max for him deadlift.
Hmm.
And again, I've got Larry. Larry's 75 years old and he still likes to try that 1 rep max stuff. So if you're skilled enough, if it's something
Yeah.
you enjoy, if you've built up a clear tolerance for it, great. Um, but at the same time, I think it's just one piece, like you said, it's one piece of a very robust approach to training that incorporates multiple rep ranges, different, not everything's always to failure. We got to
Hmm.
bake in enough recovery. So I think,
Yeah, yeah, and that's the big piece that's changed for me is the recovery word. That's been
mm,
a big change and something that I'm a huge advocate for. Um, and that's where I fight myself a lot with my mind versus my physical body because I feel like I overstress my body more than I should or I
mm,
did, and I'm starting to now feel like recovery is really a priority for me. And that doesn't and recovery doesn't mean take a rest day and sit on my butt and not do anything all day, but a recovery from taxing my nervous system or lifting heavy weights over my head or whatever it is, but maybe walking, or I have a bike here, an easy ride on my bike. Um, something. I do a lot of mobility work now too, and that's been super helpful actually. My back is starting to feel as good as it's felt in a long time as a result. So, those kinds of things taking a little bit more precedence than they used to.
A quick sponsor break for my current aspiring coach listeners. This episode is brought to you by TrainHeroic. If you know me, you know I only work with sponsors I use personally and where I know the people behind the product. TrainHeroic is the best online coaching software in the industry. Not only is it a great platform for one-on-one coaching, it's fantastic for group coaching and selling standalone programs. TrainHeroic is used by some of my trusted friends, so I switched my online group program here, and my members love it, raving about its ease of use. Having a dedicated app means far greater reliability for my clients and has been by far my best experience with any online coaching software. TrainHeroic is a proven and stable industry leader, meaning it isn't going to suddenly disappear. One of the biggest risks in choosing an online coaching software. When you start a free trial today, you'll get 90 days free to experience why I love and trust this platform. You'll get full support from their team, who've been a joy for me to work with. And I trust TrainHeroic and the people behind it. Here's how to activate your free 90-day trial. It's 2 important steps. Number 1, go to www.trainheroic.com/liftfree. Step 2, reply to the email you get. It should be trials@trainheroic.com, and let them know I sent you, or go to the links in the show notes.
I think this is adjacent. Let's talk about metabolism and aging. And I know you put up something recently on this.
Yeah.
And there's this, I don't know, it was maybe a little over a year, 2 years ago, big research study that more or less confirmed that there is no decline in our metabolic rate up until about the age of 60. And then after 60, the decline is very modest. So what's going on there?
Well, I think I like to call that Mother Nature's metabolism, just your basic metabolic rate of living, right? That's what's not slowing down. And that's great news, right? I think that that's great news and mind blowing for many of us in my generation that grew up just assuming that everything tanked as you got older. So cool that we have some control over that. But I think that's not what people are feeling. And I hear this from women all the time. And I think what they're not understanding about this is, okay, Mother Nature is not really slowing your metabolism down. So why does it feel like it is slowing down? Why are things not working that used to work for you all the time? And that's assuming you're doing all the right things, right? Well, over time, you're moving less. Over time, you have lost muscle mass. Over time, you've lost bone density, and all of that will change how your body functions. And it's not going to function as efficiently when all these things change. And when they change, it's not like you wake up and you feel the change. It happened decades ago. It starts and it's little bitty steps along the way that you don't notice, that's what's happening. That's why we talk about, we want you to strength train. We want you to do all these things as when you're in your 20s and 30s and keep going from there, because then you're going to be ahead of the game. But I think that's what people my age are feeling. And the problem is that there are a lot of coaches out there that talk about, well, it's not your metabolism, you're just eating too much. And it's like, wait a minute. Whoa. I think there's more nuance to this because yes, it is calories in, calories out. I get that. It always will be. But you have to be a little more nuanced with it because of why is it not working anymore? I think that's what people don't understand. And that's what I would love to see coaches address more with their clients. Why is this stuff? You are doing exactly what we prescribe and nothing's working for you. Let's look at what has happened. What are you doing? You go do your workout for your 45 minutes during the day. And then what? Do you do anything else? Are you sitting around, analyzing why are these things not working? What could potentially be happening to you metabolically that your body's not functioning the same way it used to? Because there are things that are happening. And when you can break through that, when you can get people to understand a bigger picture like that, I think more pieces to the puzzle kind of fall into place. But that study was great. Because I think that's huge to know that you can control a lot of this. We just now need to be aware of what we have to control, over a long period of time.
And I think maybe it would help if we defined what we mean by metabolism in this context. And we are talking about basal metabolic rate.
Yeah.
There are 4 components to the calories we burn that ultimately are true metabolism. Basal metabolic rate, NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. That's the big one. We're going to come back to that. Exercise activity, right? Which, yes, we can control directly, but people traditionally have thought about exercise as burning calories to lose weight.
Yeah.
exercise calorie burn is actually a smaller component of total energy expenditure. So it's not the best lever to pull on. It's not the, I actually think that people who say it isn't effective are also intellectually dishonest. It actually is very effective. It's just not a
It's
big effect.
yeah.
And then there's the thermic effect of food, which of course has to do with what you're eating. But going back to the NEAT, and what we've been talking about this whole time is the change in lifestyle, the change in
Yep.
behavior. I think step count is a really good, more and more, I'm just paying attention to step count for myself and people as a decent proxy for overall NEAT. But it's that daily activity that changes over time. And then the loss of muscle, the loss of bone, the loss of independence at a certain level, plus all the stuff that keeps life busy. That's the thing that influences NEAT. And I think that's, and I love where you were going with this. It is not that as simple as, oh, metabolism hasn't gone down, therefore we burn the same amount of calories. Those two things are not the same at all. It's just the base metabolic rate isn't meaningfully changing until 60, and even then it's not a big deal. But these other things actually change a lot because of our lifestyle.
Yeah. I like to call that the lifestyle metabolism because it's about your lifestyle, what you're doing, what you're not doing, versus Mother Nature's metabolism, which is kind of the baseline, the basal one. And um, I mean, metabolism, if you think of it in that way, you have, I guess, more, if you look at your lifestyle, there's more concrete stuff that you can grab onto and look at. And for me, and I'll just say for me, I have gone through a lot of this. I had no idea I had osteoporosis. I had my first DEXA ever a year ago, actually. I think it's been a year or a little over a year. And I was stunned. I'm the girl that lifts. I've been lifting for a long time. I'm the girl that actually did a running thing back in my 40s. I ran a lot, ran half marathons and things horribly, but I did it. And I end up having osteoporosis. Well, my mom had it. And, at some point, my doc said genetics are very powerful for osteoporosis. Um, and that's a big metabolic factor right there, which I had no idea I was losing or I had lost. So just knowing that there are some things to be aware of and then approach, okay, how do we fix this? And so now my mindset for me in my scenario regarding the bone is I'm adding impact to my life, which I hadn't really added in a while. I'm not taking any osteo medicine right now, but I am on HRT and we're going to see what estrogen might do. I can't supposedly reverse this, but I can improve it. And that's the goal, and so we'll see when I have my next DEXA, but I was made aware. And so then I could take action.
Mm. And this will tie into something you said earlier, but now that you have this diagnosis, I think what ends up happening to a lot of people with that diagnose, a lot of women, then they start thinking they're fragile. They start being
Yeah.
fearful. So what ends up happening? What does the average person do, and what are you doing to
Yeah.
go against the
Yeah.
grain?
I mean, interesting. Yeah. It's the rebel in me that I think the average person probably retreats and like they're afraid to move because they're afraid that their bones are just going to break, you know? Um, for me, I like, okay, no, I hit it square on the face. I like, okay, I went to Jordan. I said, I've got to add impact. I've got to, I started jumping rope back when the weather was great. Just stuff that I would never have imagined myself doing or having to do, but now I'm doing. I even thought about running again, but I don't want to run a lot on my hip. I want to save that as much as I can, but maybe a little jog here and there wouldn't be a bad thing when the weather gets better. But I had some impact stuff I did today. I have just this little routine that I do. And doing that and then pursuing the whole HRT pursuit, bone density. I only learned about my osteoporosis because I started pursuing HRT. And as part of me pursuing that, I had my OBGYN said, let's get you a DEXA. So,
Mhm.
um, yeah, I'm hoping the HRT has helped. I'm hoping my impact stuff has helped. And then we'll kind of reevaluate when I get my next DEXA and see
Mhm.
my numbers are improving a little bit. If not, I may go on a medication. I don't know. Um, we'll see.
And we know that resistance training is probably the best thing for maintaining
Yeah,
bone health.
yeah,
And muscle is, I mean, it's bones don't exist in isolation, right? We have the structure
yeah,
that moves and supports us and absorbs impact. And the more muscle you maintain, the more support those bones have, right?
Yep. Yep. I mean, and it's yeah, and the average 60 something year old woman is probably afraid to get injured. You know,
Mm.
that and osteoporosis aside, just in general, going to a gym, that's obviously a big fear. Um, and having someone like you in person, whatever, to guide them and teach them how to lift safely and effectively for where they are and what they're doing, um, cures a lot of that fear, right? It's just getting these women into the gym with somebody that they trust that can guide them appropriately and let them build confidence. Because you see it all the time. I see it all the time. Once somebody gets a taste of that, what strength training will do for them, aside from the fact that you're building strength and muscle and how that's going to improve your longevity, all that stuff, but the other stuff, like the confidence and how they carry themselves. Now that goes into other parts of their life. And that's what women need to do too. And if you've not experienced that, it's hard to describe to somebody what that's like. But once you have, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And it's priceless. It's absolutely priceless.
Holistically, for all the things we're talking about, you got someone who's listening who's 30s, 40s. What are you saying to them? Especially maybe it's a person who's struggling to, life's busy, we know that. People with kids, we know these are compounding factors, careers. But what would you say, hey, take this seriously? Because you've done a lot of this stuff really well, and we've documented some of the things that you're dealing with, certainly with bone health, right? Yeah. What would you say to someone, male or female?
I would just tell them, look, give me two times a week at least with your busy life of lifting. Um, be active with your kids, be active outside of that, but do that for your 60-year-old self. Like,
Mm.
I want these people when they're my age to be light years ahead of where I am right now. And I think it's more than doable. My generation, we didn't have as much information as the generation below me. I wish I knew all this when I was in my 20s or 30s. I wish, I would have approached things probably differently. I have more information than my mom's generation did, so I'm doing much better than my mom was at 65. So I feel like if the people in their 20s and 30s can hop on this strength training and just walking train, let's just even do that and keep that going as consistently as you can with some decent nutrition, pay attention, be aware. When you get to my age, you're going to be like, I mean, it's going to be incredible. And I want to see it. I want to be there to see it. Um, the problem I feel like is that when you're that young, it's hard for you to look past 2 days from then as opposed to 20, 30 years down the road. I mean, I wasn't thinking about that when I was in my 20s or 30s. 60 was like ancient. Back when I was in my 20s. It's not so much now. I get that. I mean, our perspective has shifted greatly as far as age. Um, but it's hard to look that far down the road. But a little bit of commitment consistently over time and just be aware of what you're doing, I think you will live a longer and more functional life than any of us, and it's exciting to see. And I hope people do that. I hope people in their 20s and 30s take it on and run with this ball.
This is a theme that has come up a lot with women I've coached who are kind of between the age of 30 and 50-ish. And I have a question here. I don't want to go too deep in this, but I found that when I talk to them about the beliefs that mom, metaphorically or literally mom, had about her value as a person was in her smallness, thinness, even attractiveness. That's the virtually every woman I've ever coached. When I go into this territory, alarm bells go off. This is something that they experienced. And it's not to vilify mom, because to your point, mom was a product of the information, cultural trends, etc. But did, was this also something that you had grew up around with these belief systems that, and I like saying this, they don't belong to you. It's not as simple as people say, "Oh my God, these aren't mine. Now I can let them go." No, no, this stuff is the word indoctrination is very much
Yeah.
applicable here. You're indoctrinated in these cultural beliefs, the way that mom and other cultural influence spoke about their bodies, spoke to the kids about their weight, the way that mom talked about her body and engaged in diet culture, right? So were you indoctrinated in this stuff growing up? And
Oh yeah.
were you able to free yourself from it at any point, or you still fight it?
Yes, I was definitely brought up with all of that. I remember I had relatives called me Tank when I was younger. Never thought anything of it back then. I didn't like it. I remember, but I look back on that now and I'm like, wow, this just, played right into everything for me. I was never an obese kid growing up, but I always had weight to lose. I was kind of in that, not obese, but not at a good weight for my size or whatever.
Mm,
And I'll be honest with you, yeah, I still struggle with that. I was part of the skinny. Skinny was my word back in the
mm,
day. That was the desire to be skinny. And if somebody called you skinny, that was a compliment. Um, I think now if someone calls you skinny, I think the word's taken on a little bit of a different meaning now. But I will be honest with you, I still struggle with this. And I don't think it's something because it's indoctrinated in you. And I think that that's a good word. And I don't think it's something that ever completely goes away. I
mm,
think what happens is over time, you learn to control these feelings, you learn to manage them. It's emotional based, it's based out of emotion, and you learn how to shut that part off. And it's as simple as stepping on the scale. When my generation, when we would step on the scale, if it went up, that was bad. If it went down, that was good. There was no discussion. There was no nuance to why it might have gone up or why it might have gone down. It was just bad or good. That was it. And to this day, when I step on the scale and I see the number go up, I get that kick in the gut every single time. The difference now, though, is I understand what's happening. I understand the logic behind it. I know about fluctuations now. So I can shut emotion off right then and there, right? So it's just a passing little, but I still get it. So it's still there, right? I feel like it's PTSD-ish, you know what I mean? From all the time growing up, that was the biggest fear of my life was going to the doctor and having to step on the scale. I hated that. I bet you they took my blood pressure and would often be higher. And it was just one of those things. You sit in the waiting room and you're sweating it out because you're going to step on the scale. That was one of those with the bar that goes across, right? They take the big
mm.
bar for like the 50 pound, every 50 pounds, and then the little bar, and they try to balance that thing. And, and it just took forever. And you're just like, all the anxiety with that. That's what we grew up with. And so I don't think that goes away. Things like that, the whole thing about liking our bodies a certain way and all that, I think that that's tough. And I have body image problems. I'm not comfortable in my skin right now. I've gone through some changes with HRT, and I'm not super happy with how I feel and look, and I'm not comfortable in my own skin. However, I understand it's not because I'm sitting around and binge eating and eating 5,000 calories. I understand what's happening, but I still don't like it, you know?
Mm.
And I think it's okay to acknowledge that. But when it's not okay is when you start allowing the emotional component of that to kind of start steering you, and it's never stable when you start basing stuff on emotion.
This episode is brought to you by Just Bite Me Meals. I work long days and I won't compromise my client experience or sacrifice my workout, sleep, or nutrition. So I needed a quality and reliable meal prep service so I could save time on cooking and shopping and have more time for the stuff that matters. Net out the cost of groceries, and the service isn't as much as you might think. And regular impulsive food delivery apps, eating out, that costs way more anyway. I get more meal variety and less dishes to clean, and I've been referring clients to Just Bite Me Meals for a long time, and I recently started ordering myself. Food is great. The beef brisket tacos are my favorite so far, and there's a lot of menu choice. Your calories and macros are listed. The portions are great. You can order custom meals. They deliver to your door, or you can pick up from their storefront.
And I'm sorry to listeners outside of Alberta, but Just Bite Me Meals is currently just in Edmonton, Calgary, Grand Prairie, and Fort McMurray. Ordering from Just Bite Me Meals made my life easier instantly. And you can get 10% off on all your orders using my code, Andrew Coates Fitness, all caps, on their website. That's Andrew Coates Fitness, all capitals, or go to the link and the code in the show notes. Do you want to talk a little bit about this with the limited amount of time we have? Because I was going to cue you with a question, and maybe we can start here. You had a post about red flags to pay attention to when something might be off. And you mentioned things like brain fog and exhaustion.
Yeah.
So you're free to do whatever you want to do here with the HRT experience, something that, would be helpful to people listening.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I'm trying to be as public as I can with all of this because there's no talk about HRT, people starting HRT in my age bracket at all. There's really not much out there, and so I'm just trying to share my experience, and I'm in no way a doctor, just sharing what I'm learning in my own experience. But yeah, the symptoms I started paying attention to, night sweats came back. I mean, I had those in my 50s, and all of a sudden they're back. Brain fog. I'd be talking to you and I would just stop. Like, what was I going to say? It was a word or a phrase. I wouldn't be able to recall it. I had such extreme exhaustion that I couldn't function. And I remember growing up hearing people say that they had chronic fatigue. I didn't understand what that was until I called it chronic exhaustion. I would drag my ass to the gym and I could hardly do anything. I couldn't wait to get out of there. I would walk on my walking pad and I have to get off. I couldn't do it. My legs felt like they weighed 300 pounds each, and you're wading through water. And I'm like, wait, this is not, there's something wrong here. And I got some blood work done for something else. And my LDL shot through the roof. My A1C started creeping up and I'm like, what is going on? I haven't changed anything. What is going on with me? Anxiety was through the roof, muscle and joint aches 24/7. And so that's when I decided I started tracking these every day. I just check off. Did I have this? Da, 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 da. Went on an online consult with a menopause doc online who I respect and got a lot of great information. Found a local person willing to work with me on trying some HRT. And she's very, I think she's nervous about working with me because of my age. And while she's part of the Menopause Society and more of the more recent guidelines, and she understands the WHI study that was just horrible years and years ago, she's still nervous because I'm 65. And there's uncertainty, and that's why she's nervous, right? There's the research for someone like me is not there. And then let's add to the fact that I have AFib. And so that makes it a little more complicated. But I'm also on a blood thinner, so that should help. And anyway, finally got her to agree. We started back in June or late May on the lowest dose possible, some progesterone. I'm on testosterone as well. And we're in the process and have been of finding dosages that work for me. And from what I've learned, and everybody has said, yep, that's pretty much it. This could take a couple years, because every time you tweak something, you got to write it out for 3 months or so, because you have to see if she tweaks the one thing, we can't touch anything else. Let's tweak the one thing, write it out for 3 months. Let's see where we are in 3 months. And if it's not right, then we're going to go, we're trying this and we're trying that and all these things. So it takes for freaking ever. And it can get discouraging, because you're still not feeling where you want to feel. But I understand the process now. I understand. And I'm banging down doors, and I did my research. I've been online. I've been talking to people. I've attended webinars. I'm learning as much as I can. And sharing as much as I can. And the feedback I get from women there's no one for us. There's no one in their 60s who's starting this. I mean, and that's talking about it. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to improve my own life, my quality of life by doing this, finding what works for me, and then sharing it with everybody just to let them know, you're not alone. There's so many women out there in their 60s that are suffering that have been told, no, you're too old. And that's just not accurate information. And so trying to help them navigate is what I'm doing.
And I think this is something that anybody who's listening going, ooh, I'm interested, go follow what you're doing because I've seen that you have been posting about this very thing.
Yeah.
I'll direct people, and I'm not sure if you are familiar with Amanda Thebe. She was on
Oh,
a
yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. We're
good,
friends. Yeah. She's
wonderful. I'm
great.
thrilled to hear it. She is great. I'll be actually meeting her in person at Aram Grigorian's Real Coaches Summit. She's one of
Love
the
that.
presenters in late April, so I'm looking forward to that. Anybody wants to attend, guys, please do. I'll see you there. But she's kind of my frontline clearinghouse because while she herself is not a medical doctor, she's got a really good grasp on where the research is and she'll point people to the right places. And she
Yeah.
probably most closely follows Dr. Jen Gunter, who is, I think, the gold standard at this point because I won't say the names, but there's been a lot of concerns echoed about some of the individuals who've gained great prominence in the women's menopausal space for
It's,
having deviated from wildly from where the research lies.
and that whole scene is unfortunate, I
Mm,
think, just because it makes more confusion for women out there trying to get answers and help. I feel like it's almost, I feel like it's seventh grade girl kind of stuff, from my
mm.
counseling days. That's the only the analogy I could come up with where they go at each other. Um, and I know there's stuff that people do on one side, but
Mm,
I don't want to be part of any of that.
mm,
I kind of respect everybody. I think everybody's had some good things to say. And I know Jen's been great with the research. She's like top of the line with that kind of thing. And I've learned a lot actually from all of them. Um, it's just a tough environment, and it does, it makes it harder, I think, for women to know what do I do.
No, that absolutely makes sense.
Yeah.
And there is one of the problems with this. It's a place where, for a very long time, there was almost no public messaging. There
Mm,
is a massive cohort of people, women, who are going through or will go through this, and there's a gold rush here. And
yeah.
so, and it's why personally I tend to push people to say, go follow Amanda Thebe, go
Yep.
follow Dr. Jen Gunter,
Yep.
because I'm personally cautious about the incentives and motives of some of the other players in that space that may not be pure. So that's kind of where I fall on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't disagree with that. I think it's yeah, I mean, it's not a fun space to be part of in
Mm,
that way. Um and sometimes it's just easier to, I've gotten pushback and all I'm doing is trying to share. I'm
mm,
not trying to say
yeah,
that it's this or da da da, or all I'm saying is this is my experience and people are like not, so I get it.
which is very different from saying here is what works
Yeah.
for everybody, right? So,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah,
I
yeah.
think your
No,
stuff's going to be relatable.
yeah.
Everybody can follow you at just Susan Niebergall Fitness
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
Instagram. Anything else you want to point people to?
My YouTube channel, I have a whole
Mm.
YouTube channel with some resources there. And in particular, I did a kind of a before and after hip surgery stuff, how I prepped for it, and then how I rehabbed it after. If anybody's heading down that road, it's over there. And then my book, Fit at Any Age, It's Never Too Late.
Amazing. Susan, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for taking the time to come talk with me.
Absolutely great to see you, Andrew.